there are a few advantages to a short sale. The owner stays in the house and takes care of it, right? So the house isn't like neglected too much, assuming that the owner is taking pride in his residence. You may be able to negotiate below market price, and that's, you know, who determines the market price. Basically, you know, market price is kind of an amorphous thing, really. It's always shifting, and it's subject to perception, I think. But you can, in fact, I've seen some short sales which I do look at the price and say, wow, that was cheap. You can also use traditional financing, regular, you know, Wells Fargo or Citibank or whoever will give you a loan on a short sale. And sometimes, and this is something to take a close look at, it'll say approved at this price, right? So when you see that it's approved at that price, that usually means that you can actually just go and buy it at that price. Unfortunately, that price is usually more than you want to pay because it's an approval from several months back, right? But they were in escrow or whatever, they had a buyer, they went through the whole process, the buyer walked, they finally got approval at a price from 3 or 4 months ago, and that's just too high now, you don't want to pay it. So then you put another offer in, and you're going to wait again for another approval at a lower amount. I have an offer in on a property right now. It's the same thing. It was approved at, I'm not sure how much, you know, $700,000, and we put an offer at $625,000. So our offer at $625,000 is just going to, you know, sit there until one day, you know, maybe they'll say yes, or maybe they'll say no. Who knows? Maybe it'll get foreclosed on. Probably will. One big thing is it's a karma bonus, buying a short sale, because basically you help somebody not get foreclosed on. So it is good, actually, to put a short sale offer in. My advice on short sales is do a, you know, Ron, what's his name? Mr. Popeil said it and forget it. Basically, you put your offer in and you walk away. Don't get too tied to a short sale, because the odds are very good it's never going to come together. So I would just put it in and just go about your business and keep on looking for houses. And if it comes up that they're going to take your offer, wonderful. But they probably won't happen. So move along. That's what I say. Trustee sale, this is the courthouse steps. They're advertised in the newspaper, the sales are. Here, they're actually not all the time happen on the courthouse steps. Sometimes it happens at First American Title Company. They do a few down there as well. Very few individuals buy in the courthouse steps, and I think we're going to talk about that in a little second, why. But it's interesting to know that 85 to 90% of the time, the properties which are auctioned go back to the bank. And the reason for that is because there's usually no equity at the opening bid. In other words, they're asking $600,000 for a house that's worth $450,000. So who would want to buy that? Nobody, right? So most of the time it goes back to the bank. So there's a few challenges with buying at a trustee sale. You must pay in cash. That's the big one. So you need to go down there with a whole series of cashier's checks and little blocks. So you get one cashier's check, several cashier's checks for $100,000, and some for $50,000, and some for $25,000 and $10,000 and $1,000, and that's how you bid. You basically have a whole collection of cashier's checks ready to go for whatever amount that you may be you know, bidding up to. And you have no chance to inspect the property. Maybe sometimes you can. If you've been tracking it, you can talk to the occupants or whatever, and then maybe they let you in. Maybe they won't. Maybe it's vacant. Who knows? And then after the sale is over, you will have to evict the occupants yourself. That's a lot of fun. You have to clean up the property. There may be other liens on the property which do not get wiped out, like property tax liens and IRS tax liens, for example. And then here's the big one. Once you buy it, it's yours to keep. There's no refund. It's an instantaneous thing. It's yours. If it's a meth lab, you have to have it be abated. That's your bad luck. So very challenging. Very risky. Very risky. So the trustee sale advantage is one big advantage. It is possible to get a property really cheap at the trustee sale. Sometimes, once in a while, the real pros will actually snap up. They'll go in there. They'll be like, you know, the lot is worth $300,000. So if they're asking $342,000, then, you know, how bad could it be, right? So, you know, and typically they will have done a lot of investigation before they actually bid on it. So once in a while, you actually can get it really cheap at a trustee sale. After the trustee sale, if nobody bids on it, it goes back to the bank and becomes an REO. REO stands for real estate owned. That's what the banks call it when they own a property. Let's see here. After the bank takes it back, the property is vacated. That is to say, they'll either offer people cash for keys, they'll give them some money and say, you know, clean up the house and don't strip it and get out within 30, 60 days, something like that. Sometimes they're vacant at the time of foreclosure. A lot of people, I'd say about 25 to 30% of the time I get a listing, they're vacant. The people have already left. Sometimes they leave them immaculately clean. Sometimes they just leave them totally trashed. Hard to say, really, but either way, they will remove everything out of there, and they will usually do a sales clean. You know, they'll vacuum and mop and sweep and and they'll typically do some minor, repairs. They'll put in smoke detectors and make it up to the minimum code. The property is sold with a clear title, basically, as if you were buying from somebody else. They have these curative departments, actually, and basically their job is to, they actually hire these title companies, and they spend like 1 month or 2 months or 3 months clearing up the title and getting other encumbrances off there so that they can resell it to somebody else. So sometimes people wonder, why is there a big delay in that property coming in the market? It was foreclosed on 3 months ago. Because they're clearing the title a lot of the time.
Clearing the red tags?
No, they're not cleaning red tags. They typically do not clear red tags, but they're clearing like other liens which may be on the property. They're working with the IRS to have the IRS forego its liens that it has on the property, and any other kind of weird stuff which they see on a title report. So there's a few challenges with REO properties. No disclosures are made. Basically, it's nobody knows anything about it, and it's incumbent upon the buyer to go and do a lot of investigations into the property. That's always the case anyway. The seller is required to disclose what they know, but they're not required to make their own inspections or investigations into the property. That's the buyer's job. So if you can prove the seller was, hiding something from you in a court of law, I guess you could sue him after the sale if you found out some defect. But it is incumbent always, in all cases, for you to do an investigation of the property. But it's especially true in the case of an REO because they won't give you any clues, right? The actual former owner may have said, oh yeah, I'm not quite sure where the property line is. In that case, well, you would know you might want to do a survey, right? Well, in an REO, you never know where the property line is exactly unless you do a survey. The properties are sold as is, where is. All properties are always sold as is. The California Purchase Agreement is an as-is purchase agreement, which means the seller is not promising that they're going to make repairs unless it's explicitly written into the contract somewhere that they're going to make repairs. And so the banks also say it's as is, where is. Sometimes they mean it and sometimes they don't. It says no, really. Well, you shouldn't count on it, but typically more often than not, I should say, if your lender comes back requiring a specific repair to be made in order to fund the loan, if it's not too much money, they will typically actually carry out that repair. And one challenge that people are finding a lot is that the well-priced properties, and most REOs are in fact well-priced, will sell quickly and oftentimes with multiple offers. That's happening a lot. I have sometimes 15, 20, or 30 offers on these listings. REOs have many, many advantages, even over a regular purchase from a person. One thing is they're almost always vacant and easy to show anytime, and almost always, sometimes if it's a multi-residential building, they will keep the tenants in there, but typically they are sold without anybody in them. You do get an inspection period, like on a trustee sale on the courthouse steps, you get no inspection. They will typically give you 7 days to inspect the property. Sometimes they will give you more, and sometimes if you come up with an actual real problem that's come up with your investigation period, you can say, hey, I'm not done with my investigations. Very commonly, they won't get you the title report until 7 days have gone by, right? So you could say, hey, I need an extra time for the preliminary title report. What can they say, right? I mean, they usually grant you specific further inspections for certain items. And you can use bank financing, you can use FHA, conventional, whatever have you. The banks typically don't offer special financing on their own properties. They typically do not. In very rare cases they might, but I've not seen it. They just want a regular loan from any lender. Some lenders, notably Bank of America, aka Countrywide, will give you a free appraisal and a credit report if you actually use their loan. So, and of course, REOs typically are the cheapest properties on the market.